All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and we are now here with week 2, and this is technically day 2 of Washington Commanders OTAs because the media just didn't have any access to yesterday's OTAs, which was technically day 1. So even though this is my first day reporting on it of week 2, it's technically day 2. So I'm gonna keep it accurate as to where the Commanders actually are with their practice, and not necessarily based on when the media has access. But either way, it's neither here nor there. Of course, I'm coming with clips and analysis from the practice, so you'll get to see a lot of the things that I'm talking about. And I'm also going to give you a deep analysis on things that maybe a lot of people didn't notice about what's going on in practice. First of all, we're seeing Emmanuel Forbes taking snaps at punt returner right now. Very interesting. Also, Brian Robinson said that the Washington Commanders will run a no-huddle up-tempo offense. We're going to talk about why that could potentially be a great thing, but also there's some negatives to that as well. It's not a perfect thing. That's why everybody doesn't do it. There's a reason that, you give and take when it comes to that offense. We're going to discuss that. Also, Jaden Daniels has reportedly been the first player in the building so far in the offseason, which says a lot. We're going to talk about some things that Jonathan Allen and Bobby Wagner have not only noticed in Jaden Daniels, but this entire organization as a whole, and how their leadership is going to help us as well. Also, we obviously have an open competition at left tackle. We're going to dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned. Again, like I promised, I'm keeping y'all updated on everything going on with practice. Anytime that the media gets any information, any clips, any tweets, anything, I promise y'all I got y'all updated. I will keep y'all informed with everything that's going on. So I really appreciate y'all staying tuned, and I also have a lot of other video ideas, so hopefully I can get another video out to y'all tonight. This is just the OTA's practice review. I still have other videos that I have planned that were coming out even before I knew that we would have access to this practice. So stay tuned for all of that, and instead of wasting more of y'all time, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. And I don't know what happened to my video that I put out last night, but I'm gonna re-upload that shortly after this video, and then I still plan on doing another video this evening, so make sure you stay tuned for those. But as far as what happened today in OTAs, Dan Quinn said in his press conference before practice, I believe, that he is not focusing on the depth chart right now. Like, there's an emphasis on still getting the team on the same page overall right now. That's what we're focused on right now. He also said that it's about getting the maximum amount of reps for players. So basically, don't get caught up where guys are right now in May as far as depth chart, as far as positioning, things like that. Don't overreact to anything. Again, it is May. It is voluntary OTAs, even though we are having 100% participation right now in these practices. That does not mean that it's July and we're in training camp, and these are like actual depth chart projections that they're showing us based on what we're doing right now. They are experimenting, and I prefer it to be that way anyway. Also, Quinn emphasized that speed and execution are the things that they're really focusing in on right now going into the second week of OTAs. And also, we have refs, we have officials there at practice, and Dan Quinn said that he hopes that they will be there at least most of the practice, if not all practices. They want refs there as often as possible. And again, we all know that has a lot of different benefits. That way, they would not practice in one way, and then we get into the regular season and find out, oh wait, that's like a penalty. That's not how you're supposed to do that, with a certain way that maybe a receiver's running a route, maybe like an offensive lineman getting to the second level too soon and not being like an eligible receiver down the field. You're getting that penalty. Maybe too much movement, illegal formation, things like that. So you want the refs there at practice literally as often as possible. Dan Quinn said that he hopes that they can be there every day. Hopefully we can secure that. Also, Mike Sanverstill was the first to walk down to practice today. Shouts out to Mitch Tisler because he's always the guy keeping track of that. And usually he waits until training camp, but he wanted to go ahead and point that out today. And of course, there's more energy at practice, man. They started practice off with the super energetic bag drill again. And that seems to be what they're going to do like from now on. Like that's something they'll always do at the beginning of practices. And of course, y'all already know I love it because they always have some Atlanta music in the background. I can't play it in my YouTube video. I wish I could, but that's my favorite part about it, honestly. I'm still surprised that they were doing it even with all of the seasoned veterans that we have, but it seems to be something that everybody really enjoys. And again, the Atlanta music as the being the theme music for all of the hype has me even more in love with the drill than I already was before. Also, shouts out to Seawall Sports. She said on Twitter, Commanders defensive coordinator Coach Joe Witt Jr. is attending a graduation today, so he is not at practice. And Coach Cliff Kingsbury's offense took full advantage. So that should give you a heads up as to how this practice is about to go down when we break down these different position groups. Of course, starting with the quarterback position. And they are still going through a lot of the basics right now. Like, they're not skipping any steps. They're not overlooking any detail. Jaden Daniels is still even doing the most basic of things, as you can see on your screen right now. And you also have Jaden Daniels going through individual drills here. And as always, man, his release looks quick and smooth per usual. I love his throwing motion and mechanics, man. Absolutely love him. And then you also have a clip of Jaden Daniels throwing a beautiful deep ball to De'Ami Brown deep into the corner of the end zone. Now, granted, there's no coverage, there's no DBs back there, but it's still a beautiful throw. I mean, very accurate, great timing, and shouts out to De'Ami Brown for the toe tap there, man. You gotta shout him out for that. Let's see if he makes enough noise to really carve out a definitive role in this offense. Let's go out there and show Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels that you need to be targeted a lot more than you have been your previous seasons with the burgundy and gold. De'Ami Brown, it's all up to you. This is your moment. It's a clean slate. You have just as much of a chance as being heavily targeted as Terry McLaurin right now. Honestly, we're starting completely over. Go out there and earn Jaden Daniels' trust and Cliff Kingsbury's trust as well. And I also like how active the coaches are in these drills as well, man. They're out there moving and running with the players. Like, our offensive coaches are not playing, and they're not just standing there watching and analyzing with their arms crossed like Rivera does during games. Like, Cliff is showing a lot of passion and energy out there. I love it. And it's not even just him. That's the better part about it. But remember his initial press conference where he came off as kind of like arrogant and nonchalant. He's showing that now that we're really talking about football stuff and we're really doing football stuff, he's one of the most passionate guys out there, and I love it, man. And then when Jaden Daniels and the offense got into 7-on-7 drills, Jaden Daniels threw a dot down the right sideline to Jahan Dotson. Sam Fortier said that the offense was cooking early in 7-on-7. Then Zach Selby described it as Jaden Daniels dropped an absolute dime to Jahan Dotson down the sideline. Then Ben Standig described it as Jaden Daniels threw a deep pass to a tightly covered Jahan Dotson that defined perfection. On stride, down the sideline, pretty much couldn't have thrown it any better than the way that Jaden Daniels threw it. And then JP Finley also commented on it and said Jaden Daniels just connected on a beauty deep sideline route to Jahan Dotson. The team will probably post the video later, I'm sure. Sideline erupted with, quote, good ball 5, unquote. And of course, JP Finley was right. We didn't have the clip. I mean, this happened. He tweeted this at 1 p.m. The Commanders just tweeted the clip at 4 p.m. That's one of the reasons I was waiting too. I was like, okay, if JP Finley strongly feels like that they will post this clip, let me just wait until they post this clip to record my video so that I can include the clip in my video. And here you go right here. The Commanders came through. And even outside of the most notable highlights that he had in practice, even just his routine throws are fun to watch, man. I mean, as you can see, I mean, look how smooth his mechanics are. Look how smooth the spiral is and all of that, man. Everything just looks so professional and mature about how he throws the ball, how he goes about throwing the ball. Because it's not just your arm, it's your footwork, it's your eyes, it's everything. It's your hips, it's how do you have a wide base or a narrow base. Jaden Daniels is more of a narrow base. It works out very well for him. The way he throws the ball, he looks like a seasoned veteran already. It is so refreshing to see a quarterback go out there and not look like a rookie so far. Of course, we don't have the bullets flying around. We're not in a war zone. We don't have the defense necessarily trying to inflict pain on him, basically try to tackle him and throw him down to the ground yet, especially once we get to the preseason and it's other teams' defenses. But right now, everything that you can do so far, as we are May 22nd in the offseason right now, Jaden Daniels is passing with flying colors. But again, we have a lot more tests, a lot more rigorous tests up ahead, but so far every test that's been placed in front of him right now, he's killing it. And then also after practice, Marcus Mariota said that Jaden Daniels looks good. He moves well and commands the offense, and he wants to continue helping Jaden Daniels grow, and that's it. That's all you do, Marcus Mariota. I'm not gonna lie, you're just here to help Jaden Daniels grow. I really sincerely hope that you never have to go out there and ever throw a pass in the regular season. But hey man, I love the fact that you're doing whatever you can as the veteran backup quarterback to help our young franchise quarterback, second overall first round pick, to be as ready as possible as soon as possible. Thank you, Marcus Mariota, for that one. And then moving on to the wide receiver, speaking of Marcus Mariota, in 7-on-7s, he connected with a deep shot to Terry McLaurin, and Terry McLaurin was excited coming off of the field as he saw a corner sitting on an out route, and he said, quote, "Oh, we got something for that," unquote. And I love that. That's what I want. A trash talking Terry. Please, I need more of that way more often. I need more of that energy that he had against the Colts when he had that huge catch against Stephon Gilmore to lead us to a game-winning touchdown. I need that. The closer that Terry gets to like a Chad Ochocinco, the more I'm gonna rock with him, even more than I already do, man. But it's also nice to see Terry McLaurin even doing just the small things in practice. Like, we should never, ever take Terry McLaurin for granted. His nuance and mechanics is just so crisp, and he's going to be a huge help for Jaden Daniels, and vice versa, because I firmly believe that the Commanders have finally gotten Terry McLaurin the quarterback that he's always deserved. I'm super excited about how that Jaden Daniels to Terry McLaurin connection is going to pick up. Can't wait to start seeing those highlights as well. And then I don't exactly know how much to take away from this. I'm not a coach, I'm more of like a film analyst. I can tell you what's going on in the game, but as far as practice goes, I'm not exactly sure. We have an interesting clip of a drill where Luke McCaffrey is going through a drill where Mike Sainristil is running next to him for like a little bit, for like a few steps. Then he just lets him run after that with no coverage at all. And then Luke McCaffrey is like running past like a bag, a simulated person in coverage or something like that. I don't exactly know what to take from that, but I'm trusting that the coaching staff knows what they're doing, and that has some type of meaning. I just don't know what it is. So shouts out to that. I just wanted to include that clip since I saw it. Why not give it to y'all as well, just to see what our third round pick is out there looking like while doing some drills. You know what I'm saying? Now moving on to the running backs. I like seeing the running backs go through a lot of passing drills. I'm really liking that. It looks like if you are a running back on this Commanders offense, then you have to be able to catch the ball and be a receiving threat. Like, you have to. And that's good for us, man, to be honest, because Austin Eckler is one of the NFL's most productive receiving backs of the last 7 years. He's pretty slow, but he's a touchdown machine. You can't argue with his receiving back ability, his third down ability. And then most importantly, Brian Robinson is very underrated in the receiving game. Even though he's an in-between the tackles, run you over type of running back, I feel like he has a lot of potential in the receiving game. We've seen a lot of flashes. It's not just flashes of luck. It's like consistency, where whenever he's given the opportunities, he makes plays in the receiving game. So I'm excited. And so I'm pretty sure that Cliff Kingsbury is happy with the group that he has. I mean, every undrafted free agent running back, both of them we brought in were receiving backs. And then every free agent running back veteran that we brought in with the Austin Eckler, of course, that's the most notable one, but Jeremy McNichols as well is a receiving back. Every running back that we brought in this offseason, whether it be through undrafted free agency or as like a veteran free agent, all four of them are receiving backs. So that shows you everything that you need to know. And then moving on to the offensive line, Dan Quinn said that there's a lot of competition at a lot of spots, but at left tackle in particular, most notably, Quinn said that the position is going to take more time, mostly because they haven't done a lot of team drills yet. And I agree with that. I mean, without pads, helmet, and full contact, how do you really measure how good an offensive lineman is? Or more importantly, how do you develop an offensive lineman? When they're doing drills on air, it's different. Like, DBs and wide receivers can go at it. Quarterbacks can kind of go at it as far as developing right now with the way we're practicing, again, with very minimal contact, no pads, only helmets and things like that. There's only certain position groups that can even develop even a little bit. And even then, nobody's developing at the rate that they would if we just had full-blown 11-on-11 contact practice practices like we're eventually going to have in training camp. But offensive line, most notably, really has nothing to gain and take away from what we're doing right now. Like, I mean, of course, there's always something you can get better at when you're out there on the field and practicing and things like that. And the fact that Bobby Wagner, like, taught Samuel Cosme something. Remember last week at OTAs when Samuel Cosme was basically preparing the pull, and he felt like he disguised it very well, and Bobby Wagner basically made a call out like, hey, that guard's about to pull, and Samuel Cosme was like, how did you know that? Like, in what way, what did I do to show you that I was doing that? I felt like I did a great job of hiding it, and Bobby Wagner explained to him like this random really small detail as to how he figured it out, and now that's helping Samuel Cosme improve as a guard. So of course there are things that offensive linemen can gain and develop at even in this time of the offseason, but still, I mean, I really feel like the offensive line is gaining the least development right now with where we are in practices. And then to continue on with the quote, plus the nature of the position doesn't lend itself to this time of year. I completely agree. To back up my point, offensive linemen, yeah, again, technically everybody has something to gain. There's always ways to improve every day when you're out there practicing with the guys, but offensive line probably are the group right now on this entire team that's gaining the least right now. So we already have a big question at left tackle, arguably easily, in my opinion, our biggest hole on the entire team right now, the biggest question mark. And then on top of that, offensive line is the position right now where we really don't know. We really can't see how much somebody is developing. Brandon Coleman could be an all-pro left tackle today for all we know, and we would have no idea. I highly doubt that he is, but there's just no way to measure it right now. So that's going to be a huge question mark moving forward for a pretty long time. Also moving on, JP Finley said Bobby Johnson, our offensive lines coach, has an elite O-lines coach voice, like he eats a bowl of gravel for breakfast. And of course, that's pretty cool and that's funny, but at the end of the day, man, I don't care how his voice sounds if he can't coach these guys up. His tenure with the Giants was not a good one, so let's see what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn can see in this guy for the reason that they hired him. And I need a guy like Brandon Coleman developing at a rapid rate. That's his main project and goal right now that I'm really keeping an eye on during these offseason practices. How close is Brandon Coleman, our third-round pick, to being a starting left tackle for our team right now, being able to protect Jaden Daniels' blind side? That's far more important than how he sounds as a coach. Now, that is interesting and it is fun, but at the end of the day, man, I'm gonna need you to go out there, Bobby Johnson, and develop this entire offensive lines group, but most notably Brandon Coleman, into a starting left tackle before we get to week 1. Yeah, I mean, that may be a tough task, but hey, man, earn your keep. We have all of these elite front office members, all of these elite coaches in our coaching staff. I'm hoping that you can become one of them, because again, his stint with the Giants was not good. We'll see if that was more of a Giants problem or a Bobby Johnson problem. We'll find out very soon. But he also has Anthony Lynn to help him as the run game coordinator, so that's going to be a big boost to his side of things, but we'll see how this goes. And now also, before we move on to the defense, running back Brian Robinson dropped a bombshell in his press conference. He said that he expects that the Commanders will run a no-huddle up-tempo offense way more than they ever have since he's been there with Eric Bieniemy and Scott Turner and those guys. And that, of course, has me very excited. Off rip, I'm like, whoa. That's the biggest headline from anything that was done or said at practice today. I mean, that sounds like the type of offense that Jaden Daniels could thrive in, like be an elite quarterback in. But there's, of course, positives and negatives to this, because otherwise, if there were no negatives, everybody will run an up-tempo, no-huddle offense. So first of all, let's start with the negatives. Most importantly, first of all, was it even smart for Brian Robinson to let it be known to everybody out there that we will be running a no-huddle up-tempo offense before we even get to training camp? Like, does that give opposing defenses more time to prepare for that against us? I don't know. But most importantly, point number 2, more specifically to the no-huddle offense up-tempo part of things, there's always a worry about scoring quickly or going 3 and out quickly. And now your defense is tired. Like an offense that is that quick can cause your defense to become fatigued at a way faster rate. That's just how it goes. So whether the offense is scoring or not, you're typically on and off the field pretty quickly, and that puts a lot of strain and pressure on your defense. So that's like the biggest negative to running a no-huddle up-tempo offense. But at the same time, there's also a lot of positives. First of all, with how tired our defense will be, you would have to assume that opposing defenses will be even more tired. And Jaden Daniels will be one of the most elite, one of the scariest quarterbacks in the NFL to go against if your defense is tired and fatigued with his skill set and his talents, with the traits that he has. Between his legs and his IQ, that is scary. I mean, legs-wise, obviously, if he takes off outside of the pocket, when you're tired as a defense, what would have been normally like a 10-yard run could potentially turn into like a 40+ just because you're tired, you're taking bad angles and things like that. But also, that no-huddle offense, that quick offense, forces a defense to stay onto the field with mostly the same defensive look that they gave in the previous play. So personnel changes, coverage changes, and things like that, you don't really have enough time to change those things up. And Jaden, with his very high IQ, will be able to eat against that. He'll be able to know, okay, this is what they were in last play. All right, so we're going to run this no-huddle offense. We're not even going to give them a chance to audible or make any changes personnel-wise. Not only are they tired, but they're essentially doing mostly what they did last play. We know what they're doing. We're going to adjust to that. We're going to adapt to that. We're going to counterpunch with this the following play. I mean, it's really unfair for a quarterback like Jaden Daniels to potentially run a no-huddle up-tempo offense. So, of course, we don't want to run it all of the time because it's going to tire out our own defense as well. But throw it in there whenever you can strategically. I think we could catch a lot of defenses off guard. Even elite defenses, when they're tired, nobody's elite. The 2000 Ravens defense, when tired, doesn't look like the 2000 Ravens defense. So that's a good strategy to have. Just make sure you're strategic with it. Don't spam it. Don't use it all the time because, again, your defense will also become tired because of it. And then secondly, also, a no-huddle up-tempo offense is a lot of what Jaden Daniels literally ran in coverage. So that will feel more natural to him and result in like the least growing pains with him transitioning from the college level to the NFL level. Like if you want Jaden Daniels to be as productive as possible, as early as possible, then a no-huddle offense is a great answer for him, especially early on until he fully matures as like a nuanced quarterback mentally, to where he's starting to do the things like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as far as dissecting and reading defenses and adjusting the defenses pre-snap, post-snap, and things like that. So I feel like that's a great way to start. And then defensive line wise, Daron Payne is looking pretty good out there, man. As you can see on your screen right now, I can't wait for Johnny Newton to get back healthy so that Daron Payne, once we get into these games, can avoid being tired and look more like this far more often than he's looked these past few seasons, where he's been playing so many snaps. Him and Jonathan Allen have been playing so many snaps that they're fatigued and tired, so they're not giving you maximum ability every play. A guy like Johnny Newton will allow those guys to be a part of a rotation a little bit more, and then be far more efficient and be more of what they are supposed to be more often. So I'm really excited about that. And then moving on to the linebackers, Jonathan Allen, when he addressed the media after practice, said that Bobby Wagner is bringing a winning mentality to the defense and that he loves it. Dan Quinn also has some good things to say about Bobby Wagner. He said that Wagner does a little of leading by example and also talking with teammates specifically, like one-on-one. He does it in his own way as a leader. He's a ball player first, but he gets to pass on his knowledge to younger players. So everybody is very high on the impact that Bobby Wagner's having right now. Again, I already just gave y'all that example of that situation from last week in OTAs where Bobby Wagner helped our starting right guard become a better guard. That's how great of a leader our linebacker is. He's helping our offensive line become better. And then Wagner also talked about Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s defense when he said in his press conference, he said that he knows the structure of certain things because of his familiarity with Dan Quinn, but he's also still focused on learning the defense, and there is something for him to learn. This is not just a carbon copy and paste defense from what Dan Quinn did with the Legion of Boom in Seattle. Dan Quinn has evolved his defense over time from the different stints that he's had around the NFL for different teams, and I like the fact that Bobby Wagner not only is aware of that, but also just from the Dan Quinn side of things. He's not just copying and pasting his defense. He's doing it based on the personnel that he has, and also based off of, okay, we got beat this way by a great offense. Let's make sure we adjust our defense to where we're prepared for that next time. Like the way that they got whooped on by the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs last year, hopefully Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. have really sat down and figured out what was the problem with their defense and how do we correct that, and what new wrinkles do we need to add to our defense, whether it be drafting certain players, signing certain players, or strategically putting players in certain positions to set them up for far better and more consistent success. Also, Wagner said that he thinks that the Commanders have a really cool linebacker room. He's looking forward to making plays with them on the field in training camp. I'm excited as well. Bobby Wagner also had a lot of praise for Jayden Daniels. He gave him a lot of compliments as far as like confidence and work ethic and things like that. But I feel like one of the most interesting parts of what he said about Jayden Daniels was that Jayden Daniels is doing things that gives a veteran like him, as in Bobby Wagner, confidence to believe in Jayden Daniels. Because a young guy can have all of the talent in the world, but veterans will not galvanize behind you until they know that you have it all mentally, that you're there, preparation, work ethic, leadership, and confidence wise and things like that. And apparently, according to Bobby Wagner, Jayden Daniels is already showing a lot of signs of that. Also, I liked his answer when he asked about what it's like being a leader and what's the best way of going about it. Like, how do you lead? And he said, quote, I think you just share your scars, unquote. And I think that's a great answer. Like, what you've been through, the good, the bad, make sure you're fully transparent. I love that. And then also in very random news, but still dealing with Bobby Wagner, he was asked about his biggest issue getting used to life on the East Coast. Because again, he's born and raised West Coast. He played college on the West Coast. So far, his whole entire time in the NFL has been West Coast. I mean, he played for the Rams, and most notably, he played for the Seahawks for the majority of his career. So this is his first time ever being in really the Eastern time zone, like living wise. He's played over here, but he's never lived here before. He said the biggest struggle with moving to the East Coast is the late start times for basketball games. And I'm not gonna lie, with as much time as I spent in the West Coast in the Western time zone, yeah, man, those games, when you get used to that Western time zone and then you come back to the Eastern time zone, those games are way too late because you get comfortable. Like a West Coast game starts at 5 p.m. on West Coast time and then it ends around like 8 or 9. But when you're used to that and then you come back to the East Coast and them games start at 8 and don't end until 11 or 12, that's a culture shock, man. That's an adjustment. I remember those days coming back to the East Coast and being like, man, why do we play this late? Even just football. I can't wait for the football season to start. He's gonna have to get used to playing at from all the way through 11 p.m. to almost 12 a.m. That has to be so weird to him. And then also moving on to the cornerbacks, we're trying to find out what a unique thing each player has right now. That was the quote that Dan Quinn gave when talking about really in general every player that we have on the Commanders, but most notably Emmanuel Forbes. Yes, Emmanuel Forbes is getting work as a punt returner right now, but again, Dan Quinn said that he is trying to find out everything that a player could have potentially inside them that may be lying dormant, that it just takes a coach to get out of them, just to try it, just to see if they can do it. And I love that philosophy and thinking that we just need to try everything with everybody, because you never know. Because what if somehow, for some crazy reason, Emmanuel Forbes actually turns out to be a great punt returner for just some crazy reason? But that goes for any unforeseen and random combination of player talent and role that you could conjure up potentially on this scene. So I'm excited that this team is just thinking outside of the box. That's my main takeaway from it. But at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, do not read into roles and depth charts this early. It is still May. It is still voluntary OTAs. I would emphasize it is still May. But at the same time, because I can understand when you have a 2023 first round corner returning punts in 2024 after getting benched in 2023, that is not a good look. I fully understand that. I wanted to preface with all of those previous thoughts, but I also understand the other side of it. But also, again, Like I've said before in other videos, I really feel like Emmanuel Forbes will be a great fit for this defense as an interception hunting corner like a DeVon Bland and a Trevon Diggs. So I'm optimistic that he will become a productive corner for us at some point. So I just really don't want y'all to look at this punt returning thing like a demotion, like a situation where they're saying, well, you suck at covering, so you need to make yourself useful by doing something out there, and hey, go out there and return punts for all I care. Make yourself useful, like as if they're just looking for any reason to not cut them. Yeah, I mean that's really how it kind of looks. But at the same time, my dog Disco brings up a great point, and I completely agree. He said on Twitter, quote, if you think that Ron Rivera and his coaching staff were trash, then how can you call any player he drafted on this roster trash? This to me is the telltale season. Again, clean slate for everyone. And I agree, because now you can argue that their talent evaluation may have been as bad as their actual coaching. Like, you can easily say that maybe they should have never drafted Emmanuel Forbes in the first place, but at the same time, on the other side of things, can we at least see what he can do with elite coaching? Remember, Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. coached up a top 5 defense in the NFL with the Cowboys these last couple of seasons, and literally the #1 takeaway defense in the NFL the past 3 seasons. And there's also been reports that Dan Quinn wanted to draft Emmanuel Forbes in the first round of last year's draft if the Commanders didn't take him first. So let's see what this great defensive coaching staff can do with a guy with his type of talents, especially a great coaching staff that seems to really like Emmanuel Forbes' talent specifically. They apparently liked him coming out of college. They had a top 30 visit with him and everything. So let's just give him time. But yeah, I see the ugly side of this, but I'm also telling y'all to just hold up. It's May. We'll see what happens when we get to like real training camp. We get the preseason games and things like that. And now, speaking of Emmanuel Forbes doing punt returning, now let's talk about special teams. And we're getting a first look at the new kickoff situation that we have going on right now. And there's been a lot of interesting players returning in these drills so far from what I'm hearing and seeing in practice. Like, we've already talked about Emmanuel Forbes returning punts just a couple of minutes ago. But in this clip right here that you're seeing right now is Noah Igbenogany. So those are 2 cornerbacks right now that are returning kicks. And I also like the fact that our new kicker Brandon McManus was making his kicks today. He was looking good, showing that he has some real power in his kicking leg and things like that. Also, with the new kicker, a new long snapper, thank goodness, and also a new special teams coach, I believe our special teams is not only going to make a huge jump from last year to this year, from 2023 to 2024, but I also believe that we will be one of the first teams to fully understand and take advantage of the new kickoff rules until most like NFL teams actually catch up, because I really believe in Larry Izzo, our new special teams coach, man. He was killing it up there with the Seahawks, and I believe he's going to bring a lot of that with them as well. And now moving on, let's talk about Dan Quinn. So JP Finley tweeted out, good from Dan Quinn on players taking ownership as leaders. Dan Quinn said, quote, the very best teams I've been a part of are strong from the locker room first. Sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're the mentee, unquote. I like that quote from Dan Quinn. He is really preaching this whole leadership thing. I mean, you saw it with our draft class. I believe like 7 of the 9 guys that we drafted were team captains. Even some of the undrafted free agents we brought in were team captains on their respective teams. And then Adam Peters, leading up to the draft, kept mentioning leadership and who a guy is off the field and all of that type of stuff, work ethic. And Dan Quinn continues to preach those same things. That seems to be something that's really the core of this team right now. Dan Quinn also confirmed that we will have a joint practice with the Miami Dolphins. He said it out of his own mouth. Already reported on that. Again, the video was out last night. I don't know what happened to it, but I guess I got to re-upload it. But either way, Dan Quinn did confirm that we will have a joint practice with the Miami Dolphins, and he also confirmed that they are trying to get another one scheduled. And he also emphasized that the Jets will be more likely than the Patriots. So we'll see. Again, in my video that should have been out last night, I don't know what happened to it, I broke down why the Jets matchup for a joint practice would be way better than the Patriots. The only advantage is that the Patriots would be in Landover, the Jets will be in New Jersey, and the Miami Dolphins one will be in Miami. But outside of that, really, there's really no advantages. I would prefer to basically use the Jets as like a measuring stick along with the Dolphins, rather than going against the Patriots, who look like they're destined to be a top 3 pick anyway. If we go out there and ball out against the Patriots in joint practices, what do we really take from it? But if we ball out against the Jets or the Dolphins, that's completely different. Also, shouts out to Resh Manuel for pointing this out, because I completely forgot about this. But Dan Quinn is loved by Mike McDaniels. Like back when Mike McDaniels was working under Dan Quinn on his coaching staff with the Atlanta Falcons, when Mike McDaniels was battling alcohol abuse, Dan Quinn was the guy that literally orchestrated for Mike McDaniels to get the mental health and recovery resources that he needed. So Mike McDaniels like literally feels like he owes his entire career to Dan Quinn. So I didn't even know that behind the scenes. So it seems like that Miami Dolphins Commanders joint practice was probably destined to happen, and that just further shows how great of a guy Dan Quinn is, just how many people he's touched in a positive way that are just rooting for him and want to see him win. Mike McDaniels is one of them, so I feel like that's going to be a great joint practice because we have each other's interest at heart. That's not just going to be a we're trying to beat you down and embarrass you joint practice. Now I do want heavy competition, but I also don't want people going out there and hurting each other, and I'm pretty sure Mike McDaniels and Dan Quinn, with the love that they have for each other, are going to make sure that message gets across the players. We should walk away from that joint practice situation with minimal casualties and injuries. I really hope so. Also, even though I'm a diehard Georgia Bulldogs fan, like, I mean, the diest of hard Georgia Bulldogs fan that you'll probably ever meet, I love that Jonathan Allen always has on some Alabama gear when he's doing his press conferences or whenever he's just in front of a camera ever. And I respect that a lot. Big salute to that. Even though I am a Georgia Bulldogs fan, and, you know, Alabama's one of our rivals. Not as much of a rival as Florida, though. I mean, I never hate any college team more than I hate Florida. But I just love the fact that he wears the Alabama everywhere he goes. I hope Marcus Rosemi-Jacksaint, when he gets back healthy, does the same thing. Also, Jonathan Allen said in his press conference, quote, "I'm so happy. It's been so reinvigorating just being here." Like, he is absolutely in love with the environment that he's a part of right now this offseason. I'm so happy. He said, quote, "Everyone is determined. Everyone is focused," unquote. And shouts out to Commanders Realm, because I completely agree with him when he said there's always quotes galore this time of year. Everybody's optimistic, but this one carries value because John knows the struggle that's been going on here for a long time. And for him to be this optimistic is definitely says something. It means something. Jonathan Allen also said at the end of last season that he didn't want to endure another rebuild, but after taking time away and seeing the new regime's vision, he says he's all in. So when we were hearing about those potential trade rumors, Jonathan Allen may want to go to a Super Bowl contender, that was probably real. But then when Adam Peters came in and changed this entire front office and coaching staff and the way that they envisioned this team going, they were able to sell Jonathan Allen on that vision, and he's like, okay, yeah, this may be a rebuild, but at least this is the right rebuild this time. So he wants to be a part of this team. Do not trade me, is basically what he's saying. He said, quote, "I come to work every day with a smile on my face," unquote. And that is crazy, man. I mean, like, that is sad, honestly. Like, the fact that he couldn't do that before, like the fact that he came into work and came to practices and games without a smile on his face tells you how bad it used to be. And the fact that he can now is just like, man, you couldn't always do that. It wasn't always good enough to where you could at least smile. I mean, you didn't have to be the most optimistic guy, because you at least smile, wake up in the morning like, yay, I'm a defensive tackle for the burgundy and gold. None of that until this new regime came in. That's terrible. Jonathan Allen also said that he prides himself on being the first person in the building, or at least one of the first people. He said Jaden Daniels has always been beating him so far in the offseason. And Bobby Wagner also said something to that extent as well. So that is great news. Jaden Daniels is out there not playing with y'all. He's one of, if not the first person out there in the building almost every practice so far this offseason. I love that from your quarterback. A lot of people say that they will do those type of things, but Jaden Daniels is actually going out there and doing it. Again, Jonathan Allen literally said he prides himself on being one of the first people there, and Jaden Daniels is still before him every time. That's really noteworthy. Also, I'm fully with JP Finley when he tweeted that he liked this answer from Marcus Mariota about our Brian Johnson, who's like our offensive passing game coordinator / assistant head coach that we brought over from the Eagles this offseason. He said, quote, "I think from a football mind standpoint, he's one of the better ones that I've been around," unquote. So basically, whatever happened in Philly, it sure seems possible that Brian Johnson was the scapegoat and it was not actually his fault. They're just blaming him for everything. And that maybe us getting Brian Johnson was a great hire, and the Eagles are probably going to be just as sorry as they were the second half of last season and going into this season, because Brian Johnson was not the issue. when you actually break down the quote about assistant head coach and offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson from Marcus Mariota. He said, quote, "He's awesome. I can't say enough good words and good things about him. He's also part of the reason why I came here. I think from a football mind standpoint, he's one of the better ones that I've been around. And I just think the person itself, he's a high integrity guy. And I just try to surround myself with those kind of people. As you get older in this league, you've been around, you're just trying to surround yourself with good people. And I really think that's what they're building here," unquote. So, hey, man, we got some Brian Johnson compliments in practice. I didn't wake up expecting that, but I love to hear the fact that Marcus Mariota honestly feels like Brian Johnson was the scapegoat of the Eagles situation, and the fact that the Eagles will probably have a lot of the same problems they had last year, and them getting rid of Brian Johnson will not fix all of those issues that they had. I love that. Also, before we get up out of here, the Commanders have officially, confirmed, named David Blackburn director of player personnel, and Grant Paulson brings up a great point with that. He said the Commanders are doing the obvious smart thing. They're hiring good scouts from the best organizations. It's not that complicated, and yet they didn't do it the entire Snyder tenure. And that's a great point, man. I briefly talked about that in my video breaking down the hire of David Blackburn and Brandon Sosna and a couple of other guys, and that's a good point. I mean, it seems so obvious. Take the best guys from the best teams and bring them over to the burgundy and gold to do those same things. And for some reason, up until we just brought in Adam Peters as our GM, we weren't doing that. Until Josh Harris became the owner, we were not doing that here. And again, it just seems so obvious. It's amazing to me that we weren't. Wow. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. I'm really excited, man. I have so much loaded up, so many ideas. But of course, I'm most importantly keep y'all updated on every single practice that the Commanders have, that the national media, that the media members, the reporters, and everybody have access to, so I can give you all of the clips like I gave you in this video, so I can give you all of the analysis and breakdowns and deep dives like I gave you into this video as well. So make sure you stay tuned for all of those and all of the more content I'm coming out on top of that. So that means I need to be doing like 2-3 videos a day. I keep saying it, but I keep randomly ending up more busier than I expect, but I'm really trying to sit down and really get those multiple videos out to y'all every day. So make sure you stay tuned. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points, if I missed any points. Let me know if you have any questions about practice that maybe I didn't touch on. If I can get you the answer, I will. I'm gonna try my best to try to read and reply to as many comments as possible, but of course I've just been super busy, so make sure you're patient with me. I really appreciate y'all. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And again, stay tuned for all of the content that I'm working on, film sessions for the draft class, everything. So stay tuned. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.